Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Sri Radha Gopinath Lalita Vishaka Devi ki, Sri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki, Sri Gauranitai ki, Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki, Go Premanandi. Umakyana Timirandasya Kinanjana Salakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Dadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Yuta Parakamalam Sri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Satvetam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakam Scha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarupyascha Kripa Sindhupyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langaite grim yat kripatamaham bande sigurum dinatarinam Nityanandamaham nomi savanandakaram param harinama pradam devam avadutam siromanim. I'm very grateful that you're still returning after the first two sessions. So I hope it was already beneficial. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, at the very end of his life, he had some remarks on the majority of his disciples, where he was mentioning that there are too many kanishtas, too many neophytes are my disciples. Bhakti-Vikas Maharaj was explaining that when institutions gather assets, then the followers of those institutions tend to become attached to the assets instead of the essence, which I found very nicely stated. The essence is what we're discussing. And that's why Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, I would prefer to sell the marble of my temples in order to print books. This was also a personal instruction from Bhaktisiddhanta to Srila Prabhupada. If you ever got money, then you print books. Now, Srila Prabhupada usually was very encouraging towards his disciples, and he was always defending them and glorifying them and appreciating them. But he had two remarks, 2 points of criticism towards his disciples. One was that you Americans tend to be very restless, always wanting to change things. So he was a bit worried that within our movement we make too many changes, deviating gradually from the Siddhanta. And the second remark that Srila Prabhupada made about his disciples, he said, my disciples do not read my books. My disciples do not read my books. And we heard in the first session, Srila Prabhupada speaking, if you do not read my books, then what can I do? You want to go to Japan, and then from Japan you want to go to India, and from India you want to go to Japan, he said. I put so much effort in even word-by-word translation of the Sanskrit, but if you do not want to read, then what can I do to help you? So these were very strong statements. So this seminar, main inspiration for this seminar, the main purpose of this seminar, is not to cover everything, because I realized after the first 2 sessions I can expand to 3 or 4 more sessions, because there is always too little time to cover everything. So my intention is not to cover everything or to go through the whole slideshow. I just want to, together with all of you, get some appetizers, get some moments of inspiration, some insights that yes, I should increase my hearing, as Gopinath Acharya was mentioning in on his lecture on the 1st of January, where he says, if you want to make a wish for 2025, although I'm not so much in favor of intention declarations, but if you want to make an intention statement, then the statement should be, I increase my hearing, both quality and quantity. So that is the inspiration also for this 3 sessions during seminar. So we covered already the why on the first session. The whole first session was about the why. We came up with 13 reasons why we should hear. And then later on, we realized that there were 2 more, and probably there are 20 more when you continue to focus on it. What were the 2 that we added yesterday? Yeah, the most important one we forgot during the first session is we hear to please Krishna. Not to gain knowledge or not to get purified, not, of course, also, but the first and foremost reason why we hear is because it gives pleasure to Krishna. Sitting here, listening to Harikatha is pleasing to Krishna, and because it's pleasing to Krishna, it's also pleasing for the souls, for us. And the 14th reason that we came up with, Srila Prabhupada mentioned that in the very end of the lecture that we were listening together, was that by hearing sufficiently, you will be promoted to the Madhyam Adhikari platform. Remember that one? Otherwise, and again, it's linked to what Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur said, is I have too many neophytes. So if you want to go from the Kanishta platform to the Madhyam Adhikari platform, you have to feed your consciousness with hearing, hearing, and hearing. So then yesterday we covered 2 aspects of this seminar, which was the when to hear. And one very enthusiastic devotee said 24 hours a day. This is nice. And if that's not possible, then at least morning and evening. If that's not possible, daily. And if that's not possible, at least regularly. So that was the section on when to hear. And then how to hear. We discussed that you can hear by sitting in a class live, listening to a live lecture. You can also listen classes online. You can also do individual study, or you can also do study in group. So these were the 4 basic formats of how to hear, how to absorb yourself in scripture. And then we discussed attitude, different aspects of the attitude, where we emphasized attentive hearing, where Krishna is addressing Arjuna with the name Dhananjaya, O conqueror of wealth, did you hear all the verses of the Bhagavad Gita with rapt attention? Tvaya eka agrena cetasa. Did you hear with one-pointed attention? O conqueror of wealth. In other words, attentive hearing is conquering all the wealth. The real wealth will be in your life by hearing. We also heard about submissive hearing, to hear in submission, and to be hungry. Before hearing, you have to be hungry to hear, because otherwise, as Ayurveda is stating, if you're not hungry, you should not eat, otherwise you cannot digest. So to feed this hunger, this appetite before hearing is also very beneficial. So eagerness is also there. And then today, we are discussing what to hear. And yesterday, we were listening to a lecture of Srila Prabhupada, or a portion of his lecture, wherein he was emphasizing that we should not hear material sounds. Actually, Bhagavatam, very beginning of the Bhagavatam, when Parikshit Maharaj had asked quite a few questions, then one of the first verses that Sukadev Goswami is speaking is Srotavya Rajendra. Nrinam Shanti Sahasrasa. He speaks about personalities who are not absorbed in Atma Tattva, who are not interested in Atma Tattva. Those personalities have thousands of topics to hear from, about. So many topics are there for persons who are not interested in Atma Tattva, and the term is used Grihesha Griya Medinam. Those Griya Medis who are absorbed in sense gratification, those will find thousands of topics to hear about. But the devotees, they only want to hear about one topic. And that is the Hare Katamritam, the nectar of Harikatha. So when we talk about hearing, about Shabda, then automatically, you don't have to read all this because it's a little bit small. I remember when I came in contact with Eastern philosophy, it was via Madame Blavatsky. Madame Blavatsky was a Russian mystic, a Russian-American mystic who studied Eastern philosophy, and she recommended in some of her books, which I read, that you have to study Veda. So at that time, when I came in contact with Krishna consciousness, or just before that, we didn't have this habit or opportunity to just go to Google and say, okay, what are the Vedas? So I went to the library and I was searching here and there, and sometimes you found one Upanishad, or you found like some mention of a summary of the Rig Veda or whatever, and I tried to read those, and I couldn't understand anything. It was very difficult. Srila Vyasadeva, at the beginning of Kali Yuga, we know how puzzled Vyasadeva was. And he had this mystic vision of the future, how Kali Yuga would evolve. And he was extremely worried, which is the nature of pure devotees or pure souls, is that they are paradukkha dukhi. When they see the suffering of others, they become completely worried and in anxiety. So Veda Vyas, he was really meditating on how to help us in Kali Yuga. So he divided the one Veda into 4 Vedas, and these 4 Vedas, the Rig, Sama, Yajur, and Atharva, he divided into 4 portions, which are the Brahmanas, the Aranyaksas, the Samhitas, and the Upanishads. And it's explained that the Brahmanas section of the Vedas, they describe the rituals. What kind of rituals should you do in order to attain higher planetary systems or something? And then the Aranyakas, these are explanations of these Brahmana sections of the Veda, to understand the rituals, the deeper meaning of the rituals. And then the Samhitas are all kinds of mantras that are full of benedictions. If you do this, then you will get that. If you do this, then you will get that. It's tempters, temptation. Like if you, for example, worship the moon planet or the moon god, then you will go there and you live for 10,000 years. There are all kinds of benedictions you get. And then the Upanishads are more for the jnanis, to get some philosophical understanding of what was written in those ritualistic mantras. So it is very complex, very complicated to read all the 4 Vedas. I think that in total there are 25,000 verses. These are the four main Vedas. And then you have the situation where Vyasadeva still felt that I did a lot. I wrote 25,000 verses. I tried to even assign each and every Veda to one Acharya so that they can spread it amongst the population. But still he felt very dissatisfied or very incomplete. Because he was thinking, it's so vast, it's so technical, it's so difficult, that maybe I should do something for the people in Kali Yuga. So he wrote the Itihasas. Itihasas are epic histories, historical events. And we have 2 Itihasas. We have the Mahabharata and we have the Ramayana. So these are for the lower class of people in society. And as we know, Kalo Sudra Sambhavat, in Kali Yuga, everyone is a Sudra. So it's a perfect scripture, Mahabharata and Ramayana. Ramayana consists of 24,000 slokas, which is 6,000 more than the Bhagavad Purana. And the Mahabharata, it's a little bit more. The complete Mahabharata consists of 200,000 verses, which is pretty impressive. So after doing that, he also composed the Puranas, which are shorter historical events in history. And he made 18 major Puranas and 18 supplementary Puranas. And these 18 Puranas he divided into 6, 6, and 6. 6 Puranas are meant for those in the mode of ignorance, 6 are for those in the mode of passion, and 6 are for those who are in the mode of goodness. And there are a lot of contradictions. If you read those 18 Puranas, you will be completely confused at the end. Because if you read, for example, the Shiva Purana, which is meant for those in the mode of ignorance, you will read that Lord Shiva is supreme. Then if you read the Brahma Purana, which is for the persons in the mode of passion, you will suddenly hear that Lord Brahma is supreme in this universe. And then when you go to the more goodness section of the Puranas, the 6 Puranas in the mode of goodness, for example, the Vishnu Purana is one of them, then suddenly you hear that Lord Vishnu is supreme. So many contradictions are there. So people who don't know the context, who don't have the full perspective of the Vedas, we discussed this yesterday, they are completely lost, and they will fight amongst each other. No, Shiva is supreme. No, Brahma is supreme. No, I'm a follower of Vishnu. Vishnu is supreme. So Veda Vyas, he understood that I gave a vast amount of literatures, but it creates, some confusion, so that it's not complete yet. So then he was thinking, let me summarize everything. And then he composed the Vedanta Sutra. But the Vedanta Sutra is not a book that you read from cover to cover. These are like coded Sanskrit verses, and within those Sanskrit verses there is a lot of meaning, but unless you get an explanation of the meaning, you will also be lost. So after this tremendous work of Srila Vyasadeva, he was confused, and by the mercy of the mercy of Narada Muni, who appeared on the scene, he got enlightened. So when we speak about what to hear, I like to share with you a verse which explains us what not to hear. So please, if you could repeat after me. Nayat vachas chitra padam hare yaso jagat pavitram prakranita karichit tatvaya samtirtam ushanti manasa nayatra hamsa niramachu siksaya. This is a verse of Narada Muni who appeared on the scene. It's one of the first verses that he speaks to Srila Vyasadeva. And he says that Nayat vachas chitra padam hare yaso, words, vacha means words, that nayat, that do not describe the glories, yasa means the fame or the glories of Hare, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that have the potency, jagat pavritam prakranita karichit. These words, glorifying the Supreme Lord, have the potency to do jagat pavitram. Jagat means the whole universe, and pavitram means purifying. Om apavitra pavitrova savavashtam gato piva. So like that. Words that describe the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Jai Sri Sri Radha Gopinath Ki Jai, they have the power to purify the entire universe. Therefore, nayat vachas, words that do not describe the glories of the Lord. Just try to understand the context with what I mentioned as an introduction about all the Vedas, the Upanishads, the Puranas, the Vedanta Sutra. Words that do not directly glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead, that has the power to purify the entire universe, tatvaya samtirtam. And this is an uppercut from the Guru to his disciple, from Narada Muni to Vyasadeva. Tat means that, those words that do not describe. Vayasam Tirtham. Tirtha means place of pilgrimage. It's a place of pilgrimage for the Vayasam, for the crows. Hare Krishna. That's quite a heavy statement. Who says that? Ushanti Manasa, all the great devotees from the past who are great thinkers. They have that opinion. And what do? Na yatra hamsa. They will not go there. Niramach usiksaya. They do not take any pleasure at the pilgrimage of crows. And what is the pilgrimage of crows? Any literature that is not directly glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In other words, when I learned this sloka many, many years ago, and sometimes when you open or you read something that is not related to Krishna, then I always think, oh, I'm going on yatra, a padayatra. I'm walking towards the place of pilgrimage for cross. In other words, what Narada Muni is saying, that the 4 Vedas, the Upanishads, the Puranas, the Samhitas, the supplementary Vedas, the Upashanas, the Smriti Sastras, the Pancharatrikri Sastras, all this is a place of pilgrimage for cross. It's not my words. I don't want to offend the Shruti, the words emanating from the breath of Lord Vishnu. These are the Shrutis, the Vedas, are the breathing of the Lord. But still, Narada Muni says this. Jesse, could you read?
Those words which do not describe the glories of the Lord, who alone can sanctify the atmosphere of the whole universe, are considered by saintly persons to be like unto a place of pilgrimage for crows. Since the all-perfect persons are inhabitants of the transcendental abode, they do not derive any pleasure there.
So, in other words, Narada Muni says, this was not your final job. You need to do something else. And then what happened? Srila Vyasadeva composed the Bhagavad Purana, which is the crest jewel of all Vedic literatures. It's the essence, it's the ripened fruit of Vedic literatures. So is it clear what we should not hear? It's very nice, because now we don't have to bother about, do I have to study all the Puranas, all the Vedas, all the Upanishads? I can go to the essence, because in Kali Yuga, the lifespan is not so long. So what should we hear? First of all, we have to hear from Bhagavad Gita. And last time when we gave the seminar or the session on the 11 favorite, my 11 favorite instructions in the Bhagavad Gita, then we hesitantly said, yes, Bhagavad Gita is the ABC. Because you can stretch the ABC for your whole lifetime and still it's full of jewels. It's even mentioned by Sanjay at the very end of the Bhagavad Gita that when I remember this conversation between these great two souls, Krishna and Arjuna, this conversation is so wonderful that my hairs are standing on end in ecstasy. So Bhagavad Gita, you can read it again and again and again and again, and still every time you find new inspiration. It's dealing with the 5 tattvas. It's dealing with the Lord, with the living entity, with prakriti, material nature, with karma, with time. And by studying it again and again, we are actually taking bath in the river of the Bhagavad Gita, purifying us from lifetimes of contamination. And then, when we have studied Bhagavad Gita, then we can go to the Srimad Bhagavatam. Srimad Bhagavatam, we can say this is the opus magnum of Srila Prabhupada's work. He spent so much time on translating and commenting upon the Srimad Bhagavatam, even up to his last breath, he was doing this. And why is it so important to study Srimad Bhagavatam? Because the beginning of Srimad Bhagavatam says, Srimad Bhagavatam Mahamuni Krite kim va parai ishvaraha. This Srimad Bhagavatam was compiled by Srila Vyasadeva in his maturity. And therefore, kim va, what is it, kim? Huh? Yeah, kim means what, but what was the verse? Srimad Bhagavatam Mahamuni Krite Kim va parai Ishvaraha. Kim va parai. Parai means other literatures. What is the use of any other literature when we have Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra, which is the essence of all the Vedic scriptures? So studying Srimad Bhagavatam, there's a beautiful verse in the 12th canto of the Bhagavatam which says, Sarva Vedanta Saram Hi Sri Bhagavatam Ishyate. That the essence of the Vedanta Sutra is the Srimad Bhagavatam. Tatra samrata triptasya nanyatrasya trati kvachit. If you have once tasted the nectar of the Srimad Bhagavatam, you will not long for any other scripture. Therefore, what's the use of any other scripture? And then, after studying Srimad Bhagavatam, we can go to the Chaitanya Charitamrita, which is how can you define Chaitanya Charitamrita? It's the psychology of the Lord. It's the mindset of the Lord. We hear about the internal reasons why Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is appearing. And it's very esoteric, but also very fascinating, that the Supreme Personality of Godhead is always the subject of everything. You agree? He is the subject. When we study Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, the subject is Krishna. But the subject, when he observes the object, all his energies, there is one particular energy that stands out, and that's the Ladini Shakti energy of the Lord, which is personified by Srimati Radharani. So when the subject, Krishna, observes the mood of the object, Srimati Radharani, he is surprised to notice that apparently the object is experiencing a higher spiritual ecstasy than the subject, me. So therefore, let me come as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in order to experience what that happiness is as the object. So the subject becomes the object in order to understand the love that is experienced by the object. Very esoteric, right? That's the Chaitanya Charitamrita. And in order to develop ourselves to a level where we can appreciate this, we have the nectar of devotion, which is called the science of bhakti. It's a scientific process to evolve on the process of bhakti. It's very nice here, if you want to go from the Bhagavatam to the Chaitanya Charitamrita. What is the very last verse of the Bhagavatam? Nama Sankirtanam Yasya is the last verse of the Bhagavatam. I offer my respectful obeisance unto the Supreme Lord Hari, the congregational chanting of whose holy names destroys all sinful reactions, and the offering of obeisance unto whom relieves all material suffering. So it's almost like Vyasadeva is saying, okay, the chanting of the holy name of the Lord is the essence and the conclusion of the Srimad Bhagavatam. So please read now the Chaitanya Charitamrita, because it's all about Harinam Sankirtan. So it's a very wonderful connection between Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So these 4 books, Srila Prabhupada had mentioned so many times in his lectures, also in some of his letters. He says, if you simply study these 4 books, it's sufficient to go back home, back to Godhead. Just studying Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, Nectar of Devotion. All the information is there. I put everything in my books, Srila Prabhupada said. So if you don't have time enough to study more than Srila Prabhupada's books, you don't have to worry. It's enough, according to Srila Prabhupada himself. But of course, our tradition is very rich, and Srila Prabhupada, he also took the essence of many, many personalities like we see here, like the 6 Goswamis, Jayadev Goswami, Prabodhananda Saraswati, Vrindavan Das Thakur, Kavi Karnapur, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, Baladev Vidyabhushan, Bhakti Vinod Thakur. Of course, Bhakti Siddhanta should also be here, but he mainly wrote commentaries on existing scriptures. And then ISKCON writers, Hare Krishna, if you go to the BLS, you almost drown in the books. Hundreds of books are written by the followers of Srila Prabhupada. It's amazing. And especially the works by the six Goswamis. So let's listen to Srila Prabhupada, what he says.
All kinds of Vedic literature, how things should be presented to the people of this age so that they can take up the matter very seriously and easily and they can respond. That was their vision. Not that they let folk become easygoing and take prasadam and go on sleeping. Oh. No. They have no time to sleep. They are always thinking. Rukanam hitakari. How people should be benefited. As much as the Lord is very much anxious for our benefit, similarly, the devotees of the Lord, they are equally anxious for the benefit of the public.
So here Srila Prabhupada says that the six Goswamis of Vrindavan were always contemplating how to benefit the people in general. Lokanam hitakarino tribhuvane. How can we benefit all living entities in the three worlds? And that is the same mood as Vyasadeva, because Srila Vyasadeva, he was all the time thinking, how can I help the conditioned souls? How can I help the conditioned souls? Six Goswamis did the same. How can we translate what we heard from Lord Chaitanya into a format that is applicable to everyone and digestible for everyone? And then Srila Prabhupada came and he took, from all those literatures, he took the essence and he put it in his commentaries of the purports of the Bhagavatam and the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So quickly go over a few very important personalities. This is Sanatana Goswami. What books did Sanatana Goswami write? Do you have any titles that you can remember? Brihad Bhagavatamrita, Hari Bhakti Vilas. Yes, that's part of the Hari Bhakti Vilas. These are the main works of Sanatana Goswami. Hari Bhakti Vilas is... actually, Hari Bhakti Vilas was mainly written by Gopal Bhatta Goswami, but Sanatana Goswami, he added and he edited and he distracted a few things and he put it into the version that we know now as the Hari Bhakti Vilas. It's full of rituals, codes of conduct for the Gaudiya Vaishnavas. Brihad Bhagavatamrita has two portions. It's called the Purva Kanda and the Uttara Kanda. The Purva Kanda is about Narada Muni, who is looking for the devotee who received the most mercy. And he's going from one devotee to the other, and when he reaches that devotee says, no, I definitely am not that person you're looking for. That devotee received the mercy, and that devotee received the mercy. And ultimately, Narada Muni ended up at Uddhava, and Uddhava sent him to the Braj Basis, and then he understood that the Braj Basis are actually the receivers of the most mercy. And then the Uttarakanda of the Brihad Bhagavatamrita is the story of Gopakumar, where Gopakumar was, traveling all over the universes and to the spiritual world, the Vaikuntha planets, and ultimately ended up in Goloka Vrindavan, where he reunited with his sweet Lord Krishna himself. And the Dasama Tipani is a commentary on the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam. Then, of course, our dear Rupa Goswami, we are all Rupa Nugas. He wrote, for example, Stavamala. Stavamala means like a garland of prayers. And in that book, you have the Upadeshamrita, Nectar of Instruction, Gitavali, and some other books. Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, we know Srila Prabhupada, he gave us the summary version or the abridged version in the form of the Nectar of Devotion. Laghu Bhagavatamrita is a commentary on the Brihad Bhagavatamrita from his elder brother Sanatana Goswami. Padyavali is like a collection of very important prayers, verses, hymns. And for example, in the Padyavali you have all the six Shastaka prayers from Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, but they are not in the same sequence. They are, in different areas. And it's Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami who actually put them in sequence as we know them now. But in the Padyavali you find the six Shastaka prayers. Also in the Padyavali you find this, the verse that Prabhupada based the International Society for Krishna Consciousness on. Krishna Bhaktir Rasa Bhavitamati. If you want to really experience the rasa of devotional service, then you have to be eager, and you cannot get it after thousands and thousands of lifetimes of pious activities. So Srila Prabhupada used Krishna consciousness, and from this verse, Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitamati. And then you have the two dramas, and the Lalita Madhava is Krishna's pastimes in Dwaraka, and the Vidakta Madhava is Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. And the Ujjvala Nilamani is an extension of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, mainly focusing on Madhurya Ras. Because in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu you don't find that many details about Madhurya Rasa. So there's a special book, Ujjvala Nilamani, specifically focusing on the Madhurya Ras. Raghunath Das Goswami, any works from him that you know? Manashiksha, yes. It's actually part of the Stavavali. Any other books that you know? Huh? Kampa Kushmanjali, yes, that's also one. I didn't write it here, but that's also one. It's also a work of Raghunath Das Goswami. I mentioned three here. The Stavali contains the Manashiksha and also the Vilap Kushumanjali. It's part of the Stavavali. Then you have Mukta Charita, which is the whole story of Srimati Radharani and Krishna with the pearls. You know that story? It's a very beautiful story how when there was Deepavali, Govardhan Deepavali, the light festival, then everybody was decorating him or herself. And then Krishna was decorating the cows, and then his parrot came and warned Krishna that in a kund nearby, all the gopis are making garlands of pearls. So maybe you can go there and get some pearls. And the gopis, they refused. Radharani didn't want to give the pearls. And then Krishna says, okay, then I will take pearls from my mother, I put them in the ground, and it will grow creepers that will bear the pearls. And then the gopis were laughing, don't you know that pearls are in oysters and they're not growing from trees? And the whole story was there, but he went to his mother and he said, can I have some pearls? And she wanted to know why, and also she laughed at him. Oh, stupid boy, you cannot grow pearls by putting them in the ground. But he did, and he collected some milk, and every day he gave milk to those, to the ground where the pearls were, and in 3-4 days, there were beautiful creepers full of pearls. And then the gopis became envious that he had such a beautiful... And then the whole story with the cowherd boys, and it's very amazing, very sweet. And Dana Keli Chintamani is also wonderful pastimes between Radha, Krishna, and gopis and gopas, where they do the tax collector pastimes that are mentioned in the Dana Keli Chintamani. So it's wonderful. Oh, and then Jiva Goswami, the Satsandarbhas. Actually, according to Jiva Goswami, the Satsandarbhas are not to his credit. It's also Gopal Bhatta Goswami who did the major portion of the work. But again, Jiva Goswami, he fine-tuned it. There are 6 Sandarbhas. You have the Tattva Sandarbha. You have the Bhagavat Sandarbha, the Paramatma Sandarbha, the Krishna Sandarbha, the Bhakti Sandarbha, and the Priti Sandarbha. These are 6 Sandarbhas. And the main purpose of a Sandarbha, the word Sandarbha is very nice. Sandrip. Drip is the root verb of Sandarbha, and drip actually means something that is important. So, and san is together, so you collect things that are important. And what is the importance of all these collective verses? The importance is that Jiva Goswami want to prove that the philosophy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Beda Abeda Tattva, the Achintya Beda Abeda Tattva, is actually true. So, and what was the basis of the proof is all about Srimad Bhagavatam. So the Tattva Sandarbha, which is the first of the 6 Sandarbhas, actually establishes the proof that Srimad Bhagavatam is the highest evidence. That is, it's very short, Tattva Sandarbha. And then the main topics that are discussed in the Sandarbhas are Sambandha, Abhideya, and Prayojana. And you have the Bhagavad Sandarbha, the Paramatma Sandarbha, and the Krishna Sandarbha. This is all about Sambandha. Then you have the Bhakti Sandarbha, it's about Abhideya. And then you have the Priti Sandarbha, which is Prema, is all about Prayojana, the ultimate goal of life. Then you have Gopal Champu. Champu means, you have different Champus. You have also the Ananda Vrindavan Champu from Kavi Karnapur. Champu means combination of poetry and prose. Then you call it Champu in Sanskrit. So Gopal Champu is all about very sweet pastimes between Radha and Krishna. And the Harinam Vyakarana is actually a Sanskrit dictionary, but all related to the names of Krishna. So explaining Sanskrit grammar on the basis of the holy names of Krishna. Jiva Goswami, he wrote an impressive number of 500,000 Sanskrit slokas. 500,000 Sanskrit slokas he compiled. So this is out of this world. Then we have Kavi Karnapura. Any books from him that we know? Gaura Ganadesha Deepika, revealing the identity of the followers of Lord Chaitanya. Yes. And Ananda Vrindavan Champu. Yes, it's also there. That's the Chaitanya Chandradoya Natakam. That's also there. And one book that I'm reading now is called the Krishna Nika Kamudi. And this is so nice. It's actually a very advanced book, which is way beyond my level. But it's Smarana Bhajan. It's the bhajan of reflecting, meditating. And in that book you find the Astakaliya Leelas, meaning that the day is divided in 8 time frames, and you meditate on what Krishna is doing in the early morning. For example, it starts at 2:30 in the morning, and the parrots, they come to wake up Radha and Krishna to warn them that if you don't go home now, then your parents will be worried when they wake up and they don't see you in bed. So get rid of the embrace between the two of you and now go home. So this is the job of the parrots. So every day, every part of the day, there is different pastimes you can meditate on. And actually part of our deity worship schedule is based on the schedule of the Astakaliya Leelas. And Kavi Karnapur is a very amazing personality. When he was a baby, his father, who was his father? Shivananda Sena is his father. What did Shivananda Sena do regularly? He would go from Mayapur to Jagannath Puri. So he brought his newborn baby, and when the baby was put in front of Lord Chaitanya, then he grabbed the toe of Lord Chaitanya and he started sucking on the toe. And that's how he became a great poet. So. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, of course, Madhurya Kadambini, is a cloud bank of sweetness, explaining actually more in detail the process from Shraddha to Prema, from Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Sarartha Vashini Tika is a book which I like very much. I read it in the form of the How to Surrender Unto Me, or Surrender Unto Me from Burijan Prabhu, where Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur actually shows the link between the verses of the Bhagavad Gita. What is the connection between one verse and another verse? And then the Chamatka, Chandrika are 4 detailed stories about Radha and Krishna, which are full of sweetness. Baladev Vichibhushan, he's a very important person in our tradition, because in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, for a long time we were the only Sampradaya that had no commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. And why did the Gaudiya Vaishnavas not care for a commentary on the Vedanta Sutra? Because Srimad Bhagavatam was considered to be the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. So why should we have a commentary when there is already a commentary by the author himself, Vyasadeva? But of course, due to social pressure from the other Sampradayas, Baladev Vichibhushan, he composed the Govinda Bhashya. And Gita Bhushana is also all about the Bhagavad Gita. Bhushana means the jewels of the Bhagavad Gita. So if you want to appreciate Bhagavad Gita more, you can study Baladev Vichibhushan's book. Anyway, there is a lot of nectar in all the different areas, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Jaiva Dharma. Kartik Chandra Prabhu is always quoting from the Jaiva Dharma. Jaiva Dharma literally means the intricate nature of the jiva. So everything about the source of the jiva, the nature of the jiva in relationship to God, in relationship to the material energy, it's all there in the Jaiva Dharma. For us, it's a very important work because the Dasa Mula Tattva, the 10 foundational principles of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, are mentioned in the Jaiva Dharma from Bhaktivinoda Thakur. I'm not going to go over all of them, but for example, Bhajan Rahasya is very interesting because there you find the 4 causes of misfortune that we discussed yesterday. We are all very fortunate, but if you want to lose that fortune, then what should you do? Commit aparadas, make mistakes in the philosophy, become extremely thirsty for temporary things, sense objects, and to be very weak in your heart. So that is there mentioned in the Bhajana Rahasya. And Bhaktyaloka is a very nice book explaining it's a commentary on the Nectar of Instruction. So a lot to read. I'm going to skip the rest because the reason for this session is to inspire everyone to absorb more in hearing. And this one I want to share with you also. If you want to read about Srila Prabhupada, there are 80 books written about Srila Prabhupada. 30 of them are out of print, according to Lakshmi Priya. I asked her yesterday. She said, but 50 are still available. So 80 books about A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. That's just amazing. Okay, so that was the what. Now the last portion, and I will do it very briefly because I don't want to go over time. Remember, this is just an appetizer to be inspired to absorb yourself in hearing. So let's see what happens. First of all, I want to share with you my own stages of hearing and reading. And maybe you can just zoom in a little bit for yourself to see in what stage are you. I don't do it because I become quite embarrassed. I will show all of them. Oh, sorry. So the first level is no hearing and no reading. And what did we learn in the first session? If you don't hear, then you will act out of false ego. And Krishna says, you will be lost. Yes. Nasroshasi, vinangshasi. If you do not hear, then you're lost. Then some of us are maybe in the stage of incidental hearing or irregular hearing. It's called anishtita hearing. I'm not asking you to raise your hands. You can do it secretly in yourself. Then we come to the stage of regular hearing as a duty without much taste. This is what happened with me in Vrindavan in the chanting. 2 weeks, I mentioned this story yesterday. For 2 weeks, trying to chant 64 rounds, no taste, for 2 weeks. So you do regular hearing or regular chanting as a duty, but there is not much taste. Then regular hearing with some attraction. I think many of you do regular hearing and there is some attraction. Don't be too hard on yourself. Then increased hearing with great taste. Constant hearing in full bliss. And the highest stage, constant hearing with the desire to become part of these pastimes. This is so nicely explained by my spiritual master already many years ago. He said, Naam, Roop, Guna, Lila, Dham. First you chant the holy name, then the form of the Lord will become manifested, then you will find his qualities, then you will be absorbed in his Lila, and then the fifth one is Dham, is the holy place where Krishna's pastimes are performed, with the desire to join him in his pastimes. So from Naam all the way to Dham. I always remember that. From Naam to Dham. So if we hear about the pastimes of the Lord and we are thrilled by it, that's wonderful. But the highest stage is, oh, I wish I could be part of it. Part of the fun. Right? So these are the stages. Rupa Goswami, usually when we talk about the stages of bhakti, which is all related, by the way, to hearing. Hearing is the most important part of devotional service. We all know, Ado, Shraddha, Tata, Sadhu Sangha, Bhajana Kriya, Tato Narta Nivriti Shat, Tato Nishta, Ruchis, Tata Atta Shakti Sato Bhava, Tata Prema Bhudanchati. And then the last line, Sadhakanam Ayam Premna. You go from the sadhana platform to the prema platform, but this is Pradurbhave Bhavet Krama. Krama means step. So it's a step-by-step process. It starts with little faith, then you start to associate with the devotees. The devotees will surely engage you in devotional service, no doubt about that. Then you will get rid of most of your anarthas, and that results in nishta, steady devotional service. After that stage, you will develop some taste for devotional service. Then you come to the stage of ashakti, which means the development of taste for the process moves into a realm where you become attracted to the Lord Himself. And then from ashakti, you get some ecstatic emotions. And when the ecstatic emotions become constant, then you call it prema. So these are the stages that we usually hear about in our tradition from Rupa Goswami. Maybe, Jesse, you can read this purport. This is from the 7th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the first verse, Maya Ashakta Manaparta Yogam Yunja Matastraya. This is one of the most important verses of the Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, if you just hear from me how to attach your mind upon me, then you will know me in full, free from doubts. Here, how you can attach your mind to me, Ashakti, you see, Mai Ashakta. Here you see the stage, Ashakta is very high, no? It's the second last of all the stages. So Bhagavad Gita, 7th chapter. Therefore I always have problems when we say Bhagavad Gita is the ABC. It's talking here about Mai Ashakta. Attach your mind upon me just by hearing, and then you will know me, free from doubt. So can you read the purport?
To hear about Krishna from Vedic literatures, or to hear from him directly through the Bhagavad Gita, is itself righteous activity. And for one who hears about Krishna, Lord Krishna, who is dwelling in everyone's heart, acts as a best wishing friend and purifies the devotee who constantly engages in hearing of him. In this way, a devotee naturally develops his dormant transcendental knowledge. As he hears more about Krishna from the Bhagavatam and from the devotees, he becomes fixed in the devotional service of the Lord. By development of devotional service, one becomes freed from the modes of passion and ignorance, and thus material lusts and avarice are diminished. When these impurities are wiped away, the candidate remains steady in his position of pure goodness, becomes enlivened by devotional service, and understands the science of God perfectly. Thus Bhakti Yoga severs the hard knot of material affection and enables one to come at once to the stage of asamsayam samagram, understanding of the Supreme Absolute Truth, personality of Godhead. Therefore, only by hearing from Krishna or from his devotee in Krishna consciousness can one understand the science of Krishna.
This is such a wonderful purport, because this describes the complete process from Shraddha to Prema. And what I wanted to share, but it's not enough time, therefore I will just focus on the 14 stages that Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur is mentioning, based on these 5 verses from the Bhagavatam 1, 2, 17 till 21, or 16 till 21. In the first stage, you remember what was the first stage mentioned by Rupa Goswami? Ado? Yes, Rupa Goswami starts with Shraddha. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he starts a little bit before Shraddha, because how do you get Shraddha? So that is Satam Kripa, it's only by the mercy of the devotees. That's the first step. Samsara Dava Nalalida Loka. It's the mercy, the cloud full of mercy that is, going from Vrindavan via the Jaladuta all the way to New York. That cloud And what did Prabhupada do in Vrindavan? He was drinking from the ocean of prema, which is like a cloud. The cloud became full of realizations. Then he traveled all the way to New York, and then it starts raining in the form of Prabhupada's speech. This is Satam Kripa. And then a drunkard comes and he changes the toilet paper of the storefront. Agyata Sukriti, unknown spiritual activity. This is Satam Kripa. If Prabhupada did not come to the West, we would not have Shraddha. Where would we be, dear devotees? I would smoke ganja the whole day, I'm sure of it, and think that I'm very spiritual. So it starts with Satam Kripa. And then, if we have this Kripa, when we are really receiving the mercy, then we can do Mahat Seva, we can serve that Vaishnava. And then we get some Shraddha. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur starts a little bit before the Shraddha. And then he goes on, Guru Padasraya, surrendering to the spiritual master. Then you get a great desire to engage in devotional service. Bhajareshu Spriya means your desire to engage in devotional service grows. Then you start actually engaging in some kind of devotional service. It's still anishtita. Then anartha pagamam, all your anarthas will gradually be gone. Then you come to the platform of nishta. Then you develop taste. Then you become attracted to the Lord. And rati is different from ashakti because it's mixed with more intimacy, according to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Then you come to the level of prema. And now we have how many stages? But how many stages are mentioned on the top? What happens after prema? Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he says, Ata darshanam, you will meet the Lord in person. Premanjana churita bhakti velochanena. When you have prema, you will meet the Lord in person. And then Hare Madhurya Anubhava, you will taste extreme sweetness. So these are the 14 stages that are given by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur in this verse, Satam Kripa Mahat Seva, Srada Guru Padasraya. Nice, no? I wanted to go into it, but that must be for another session in the future, where all these stages are linked to the different verses. Like 4 stages are linked to 16, 1 stage is linked to 17, few stages are linked to 18, etc. But we're not going into that now because we just don't have that taste. But we can do it in another session because it's very nice how hearing brings you from Satam Kripa all the way to Hare Madhurya Anubhava. So this is from the book Unveiling the Lotus Feet of the Lord by Burijan Prabhu, which is a wonderful deep study of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we will skip all this. There's so much nectar to share. I'm so sorry that we will keep it for later. Yeah. So let's summarize. These were the reasons why we should hear. I added this time. No, I didn't add this time. These were the reasons, and we need to add coming to the platform of Madhyamadikari and pleasing Krishna. Then when? 24 hours a day, morning and evening, daily and regularly. Then a summary of how to hear. Hearing, live and digital lectures, self-study and reading in group. Submissive hearing with service attitude for his pleasure. Attentive hearing, repeatedly and fully, and eagerness and hungry to hear. What to hear? Well, my advice would be, if you don't have much time and you are not that scholarly inclined, keep it to the 4 books that Srila Prabhupada gave us, because how many of you studied Srila Prabhupada's books like 7 times? All of his books? Yes? So it's now a guideline. Some senior devotees say if you are 15 years in the movement and you have read and studied Srila Prabhupada's books a few times, then you can also study some other books. So we mentioned the 14 stages of bhakti, And what I wanted to show also is Srila Prabhupada, he said a few times that because I listened, Srila Prabhupada is there in the right bottom, because I listened so closely to my spiritual master, therefore I can speak very nicely to the others. So as a conclusion, let's listen, because it's always auspicious to end with Srila Prabhupada. Let's listen to the lecture that Prabhupada gave, which I showed you as the first short video when we started this seminar, okay?
You read? If you don't read, then you feel rest. Let me go from Japan to India, from India to Japan. You are restless because you don't read. And women so hard for you, but you don't take advantage. Don't take advantage of eating and sleeping. Take advantage of this book. Then your life will be set. My deity are giving so valuable things. Day and night, trying to become into what the world. And if you don't take advantage of this, then what can I do for you?
Nice conclusion. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very, very much for giving me the opportunity to glorify the process of hearing. I want to read more, but there is some time constraints in my life. I don't know why, but I want to hear more. I hope these 3 sessions will also inspire you to open Prabhupada's books, because then we say it again, if you don't touch Srila Prabhupada's books, his books will not touch you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.